Free speech is harmful. Free speech is seen as one of the pillars of human rights, the ability to express your view, your opinion. Of course, many people advance views which aren't really based on anything credible. They don't follow the evidence. They follow prejudices, but nevertheless, those individuals are entitled to put forward their view. Freedom of speech, unsurprisingly, presents a problem for narcissists because somebody saying something about you or the things that you've done when you are a narcissist may well amount to a threat to control. If you are a narcissist who has got into a position of power, see my series about powerful narcissists using conspiracy theories, then a criticism of the unemployment statistics is a criticism of that narcissist because that narcissist is involved in running the country. Criticism of the fact that that country has gone to war, is losing a war, that there's been too many deaths despite the fact that the war is being won, the fact that production is down, the fact that certain minorities are not having their rights honoured and represented. All of those are criticisms of regimes which would threaten the incumbent narcissist's sense of control. Those narcissists that hold the reins of power invariably nullify that threat to control in a variety of ways. Military crackdowns, arrests, outlawing certain publications, preventing people from assembling, avoiding the dissemination of those dangerous ideas. Throughout history, we have seen the use of propaganda by narcissists to remain in power and assert their control, and then flexing military power, propaganda power, financial power, whatever it might be, in order to nullify the threat to control posed by the dissemination of ideas, views, and observations. The freedom of speech is invariably a threat to the control of the narcissist because somebody somewhere will take issue with the way that the narcissist is doing things. You're never going to get everybody thinking the way that you're running a country is wonderful. There are always going to be protesters. There are always going to be critics. They might be in the media, they might be on social media, they might be around a brazier outside the gates to your palace. But come they will, exercising their right of free speech. Interestingly, that whilst many narcissists will deal with the issue of free speech by the creation of a totalitarian state and crushing opposition through that free speech, there are others that believe that they are proponents of free speech, and yet their very actions suggest that they are not. It is this group that actually presents a greater danger to all of you than anybody engaging in a military or governmental crackdown. Their behaviour is insidious. It's done in a way which causes people to think, well, it's not so bad for me to need to speak out. It results in a silent majority that end up saying nothing as they have slight concerns about what's going on, but they don't feel confident enough to speak out, either because they think that what they will say will be seen as worrying unnecessarily, or more usually, they don't want to draw attention to themselves by a particularly vocal and vociferous group that will shout them down and, as we have increasingly seen, engage in behaviours which go beyond simply shouting somebody down, intimidating, threatening, engaging in verbal and physical violence. I have repeatedly explained to you that the narcissists are behind such actions because it all links to the issue of control and the drawing of fuel, two of the prime aims. I've explained to you the various ways that this manifests, and whilst, of course, there are those that are far more interested in what Harry's wife's nose looked like, there are those of you that understand and recognise the clear and present danger that is creeping through many democracies. It's incumbent on you to ensure that others are made aware of this and that they understand what it is that's causing it. The fact is, we have another example here where free speech is deemed to be harmful by those narcissists that engage in more covert behaviours, the less obvious ones, and actually, ultimately, the more dangerous ones. Mao Zedong once said that to read too many books is harmful. It appears that many in higher education agree. Certain writers, certain intellectuals blacklist authors, and universities regularly see speakers banned or cancelled on campuses. Places which are meant to be a vibrant home of ideas, a place where people are able to articulate their views with supposedly intelligent people, have become a breeding ground for silencing people. Driven by small groups of narcissists that sometimes act in tandem, in other instances, those true believer narcissists that through the herd mentality cause others to believe their views are correct, certain views are now deemed to be harmful and thus are intolerable. An example of this is that the associated students of Whitworth University voted 9-4 to bar Chinese dissident Xi Van Fleet from coming to campus to share her experience as a survivor of Maoist China. Her criticism of the woke culture in the United States was deemed too harmful for any student to hear. Ridiculously, students objected to Van Fleet's tweets on diversity, equity and inclusion, Black Lives Matter, the LGBT community and environmental justice, among other social justice initiatives. Showing the hypocrisy that these people engage in, the university mission statement for Whitworth states, Whitworth affirms freedom of expression for its students, staff and faculty. Our commitment to free expression is grounded in our faith. We take Jesus Christ as the model for engagement in public discourse and for exploration and expression of ideas. So, quite literally, a holier-than-thou approach. Students who came to the university with that assurance now find they're being told that certain views are simply too harmful to be heard. This, of course, may be a familiar thing for Van Fleet as a consequence of her own experience in the Cultural Revolution. Back in February 1957, Mao issued a surprising speech titled On the Correct Handling of Contradictions Among the People, in which he encouraged intellectual debate and criticism. Intellectuals were leery and didn't come forward, prompting Mao to take measures to induce their speech. When some then criticised party orthodoxy and corruption, Mao had the speech retroactively changed, revision of history, and cracked down on dissenters as spreading harmful thoughts. Mao rounded up the intellectuals and told citizens that the government would only allow the fragrant flowers of healthy debate while pulling out the poisonous weeds of noxious capitalism. It is noteworthy how close the rhetoric of Mao is to that of many supposed free speech advocates who are actually anti-free speech advocates. Mao declared, words and action should help to unite, not divide the people of our various nationalities. They should be beneficial, not harmful, to socialist construction. They should help to consolidate, not weaken, the people's democratic dictatorship. They should help to consolidate, not weaken, democratic centralism. The notion that free speech is harmful is now permeating higher education institutions around the world and particularly in the United States. This is being perpetuated by a small group of narcissists that infect the minds of others to become a herd mentality. Students and some faculty have maintained the position that they have the right to silence those with harmful speech, and student newspapers have declared opposing views to be outside of the protections of free speech. That shows a rampant sense of entitlement to state your opposing view is not afforded the protection of free speech. Again, the hypocrisy of those individuals whereby they state, I am allowed the freedom of expression to state my ideas, but because you disagree with me, I am silencing you. At Washington and Lee University, faculty signed a petition to bar a conservative speaker and anyone with harmful ideologies. At Emory University in the United States, the Law Review rescinded a publication offer to an author questioning systemic racism theories as hurtful and unnecessarily divisive. Other Emory students barred a free speech group from being recognised because there are no apparent safeguards in place to prevent potential and real harm that could result from these discussions. In the recent outrageous cancelling of a federal judge by Stanford law students, Stanford DEI Dean Tyrion Steinbach condemned Judge Duncan for speaking when his views were considered harmful by many. She asked, "Even in this time, and I again still ask, is the juice worth the squeeze?" Later, while Stanford reaffirmed its commitment to free speech, it refused to punish any of the students that prevented Duncan from speaking. Oh, what hypocrisy we see once again. Portland State University professor Jennifer Ruth defended the cancelling of the judge as an existential threat to students and even higher education. Again, a judge expressing his views through freedom of speech is deemed harmful. University of Rhode Island professor Eric Loomis defended the murder of a conservative protester and said that he saw nothing wrong with such acts of violence. On the University of California campus, professors rallied around a professor who physically assaulted pro-life advocates and tore down their display, once again demonstrating a lack of tolerance for free speech. The anti-free speech views on these campuses are liberating in allowing faculty and students to silence others. There is no need to respond to opposing views when they are deemed too dangerous to be heard. These supposedly intelligent individuals are too lazy to muster up a contradictory or opposing view. Instead, it's quite simple to say, "I don't like what you're saying, therefore I deny you the right to say it. I will shut you down on the basis that your view is too dangerous to be heard," yet of course ignoring the fact that their own behaviour is dangerous. In these places, certain conservative, religious and libertarian views are deemed these poisonous weeds, and they are being removed by these intolerant narcissists from the garden of fragrant flowers of approved viewpoints. The irony is that the effort to bar Z Van Fleet is all students need to know about the dangers of this type of cultural revolution and free speech limits. There are now a generation of speech phobics being led by narcissists who believe that they have a fundamental and ingrained right to silence others. They have been told since elementary school that speech is harmful and that they should not be expected to hear views that they find offensive. This just shows what weaklings they are, and it demonstrates the lower order of narcissists that they exist. The poisonous elements are being pruned from higher education through speech codes, cancel campaigns, and faculties being purged of conservative or libertarian professors. The fact is, I welcome opposing views. Where somebody has an opposing view to me, I'll allow them to express it, even though it's a threat to control, because I'm entirely confident in the fact that as a consequence of my own intelligence, being well read, and my access to information, that I can close that individual down and nullify their threat to control, not by saying, "You're not allowed to speak," but simply saying, "You're incorrect, here's why." A narcissist such as I has the capability and ability to close down those threats to control through reasoned and intelligent debate. Where the individual behaves in an idiotic way, the simplest thing to do is to ignore them. I stay in a position of withdrawal from them, which gives me that control. I'm not going to waste my finger time or my breath in trying to reason with someone who's clearly an idiot and incapable of understanding logic and evidence. In other instances, people come in a respectful manner and they come to debate me. I welcome that, and I will debate with them and demonstrate how their position is ill-founded, and they ought to allow me the similar respect of espousing my views. Too often, of course, we see that they resort to ad hominem attacks, which always tells you that they've lost the argument. Many narcissists lack the ability, the charisma, the intellectual understanding and depth of knowledge to deal with threats to control in a reasoned debate by flexing those intellectual and evidentiary muscles. Instead, it's far easier for them to resort to the knee-jerk, "you're not allowed to say that," and it's being seen with those denouncing free speech, deeming it to be harmful. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.